Hey, Orion here. I've been podcasting for over 4 years now. 4 years. I started a bit unsure and insecure, but I am so much better and I'm a different woman today. I learned and grew so much. I grew as a person and I grew as a podcast host. And I had the privilege of talking with incredible people I never even imagined I can even reach. But regardless of how famous or not famous my guest is, sometimes you have a special conversation. One that is so stellar, you remember it even 4 years later. Welcome to Stellar Conversations. This is one of my absolute favorite episodes, and it will light up your day.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hello and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. I'm your host, Orion. And today I have with me JP Sears. I learned about JP just scrolling through my newsfeed on Facebook and watching this really, really funny video that made me laugh out loud. And I got hooked and I started watching his videos. On YouTube, he portrays this ultra spiritual character who thinks he's like the most spiritual person on earth, but actually acts like an a-hole and is super selfish and self-centered. And it's really, really funny. And JP creates those little comedies about veganism and anything spiritual, like meditation, gluten-free. There's so many videos and they're all really, really funny. And I thought to myself, wow, that it's going to be so interesting to actually talk to him. And my first thought was, oh, it's going to be a really funny interview and we're going to laugh out loud and that's it. But actually, after I learned more about him and watched more videos, he is an actual emotional healing coach and a very successful one and a very effective one. And in real life, he's super deep and interesting. And so this interview was so incredible because it was a combination of the two. Every once in a while he will crack a joke that is really, really funny. But then all of a sudden we find ourselves going really deep, into stuff like, what is it being genuine and being yourself? What is it conquering fear? We even went all the way to sexuality and what is sexual energy? What is success? It was just a really good interview. So good that I actually listened to it about 3 or 4 times already. And I really hope that you guys will enjoy it as much as I did because I really, really enjoyed talking to him. And before we go on to the show, I would love to invite you to review and subscribe to Stellar Life. You can go to my website, www.stellarlifepodcast.com, and you can check out the show notes. I'm going to include some of his funny videos and a checklist and all kinds of good stuff in the show notes. And ladies, please join me on my Facebook group, www.facebook.com/groups/Stellar Life. I would love to connect with you there and hear more about what you thought about the episode and what you learned, how you liked it, and what inspired you about this conversation. And now, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hello, JP, and welcome to the Stellar Life Show. How are you doing?
I'm dysfunctional as hell, and I'm significantly happy about it. And thank you, Orion, for having me on your beautiful show.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's just start by you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, yeah, incredibly handsome. And I mean, gosh, charming blue eyes and, just funny as heck. And did I mention handsome 3 times yet? I think only twice. So I'm very handsome. I think we got 3 times on the handsome. So aside from that banter, it actually amused me, probably nobody else in the world. A little bit about me. Yeah, I've been doing had an emotional healing client practice for the past 15 years. In the past 3 years, I've been making YouTube videos, and two of those last 3 years, I've also been doing the ultra spiritual comedy series of videos, and I do speaking, performing, and yeah, all of those nuances of my work, I think there's more.
Mm-hmm.
However, the heart and soul of all my work is helping people to help themselves. And one of the dimensions of my work, a way that I hopefully help people to help themselves, is speaking to people through the language of humor.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be a universal language where messages can go in deeper than they otherwise could some of the time if they're spoken in a serious way. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. But man, my blue eyes are pretty groovy.
They are. They're very, very groovy. I'm mesmerized.
And it's very humble of you to let me tell you that, Orion.
So you're the ultra spiritual person. What was the most spiritual experience you've ever had?
I think telling people that I'm significantly spiritual is about the most spiritual experience I've ever had. And in addition to that possibility, what might be a little bit more of a sincere answer, I think living my life unapologetically, being myself to the best degree I can in any given moment. It's never perfect. Sometimes it's terrible, but doing my best to be the best me I can be. Not even the best in terms of like better or worse, but being the most authentic me as possible and letting my creativity be expressed, letting my perspectives be expressed, letting my voice be expressed, and very importantly, noticing in my internal environment how I'm feeling and what my perspectives are. I need to notice that and not apologizing for it. To me, it is very spiritual. It helps really honor my life and whatever it is that's wanting to live through me. I think we become, and I become disconnected from my spirit when I start to restrict myself or kind of adopt a posture of apologizing for who I am and what naturally wants to come through me because it's weird or whatever it is. So, and I know that's not any kind of grand, I was sitting under a tree, then I became fully enlightened and there were sparkles in the sky. But I think life is the most spiritual thing I can ever do. And of course, as we all know, just because we're alive doesn't mean we're living life. We might be surviving it. And a lot of our survival is oriented around avoiding our life. We try to live what we think other people's expectations are of our life and avoid anything outside of that. So I do think plain and simple, truly living our life is a significantly spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love what you were saying, how you're allowing yourself to be yourself, because that's not an easy thing. I know when I came here, I came to New York to study acting, and I lived in Japan, and in Japan I used to dress differently. I used to dress with more colors and being more outgoing, and I came here and I really wanted to fit in because I was different. I was from another place. I sounded different. So I started to dress down, started to put myself in a box that became so small and so tight that I didn't know how to become myself again. It was difficult to find who I am in compared to other people. And so what do you do to allow yourself to be that quirky, funny, say it like it is type of guy?
Yeah, well, and I love hearing your experience because I think it really reflects to me my experience. It sounds very similar, and you can let me know if I'm projecting too much onto you. But it sounds like, okay, you moved to New York and you lost yourself. You became someone different out of the goofy but understandable desire to fit in. And I think that was necessary for me. I did it the first, 30, 32, 33 years of my life, where I essentially lost myself.
Mm.
And I think pain is I want to say it's the best motivator. It's a motivator. Is it the best? I don't know. It's a powerful motivator, though. So I think for me, the pain of losing myself became great enough that it was now worth me expressing myself. And I didn't even know, who am I? Like, okay, I don't want to avoid being myself. I don't want to be someone else. I don't want to be anything other than me. But I don't know who I am. And that's okay. I still don't know who I am. And I don't even think who we are can be comprehended, like know who you are. I think we can be who we are and not have any kind of logical comprehension of it and conceptualization of it. So, and it's sort of ironic because, at least in my life, when I started to lose myself, I was doing that to avoid pain, avoid the pain of feeling unaccepted, rejected,
Right.
disapproved of, if I was just being myself that didn't fit into the box of the people around me. So I was avoiding pain. But of course, there comes a time when continuing to avoid the original pain in our imagination, that pain becomes greater than the actual pain of stepping into who we are. And it's funny, I think the pain of stepping into who we are, that doesn't really have much traction in my reality. It was huge in my imagination. Like, I imagined and I feared there would be so much pain being who I am. But I find life is actually way more graceful. Yes, it has challenges and blips in the radar, but the pain I feared would be there with being myself and not apologizing for it. It was just that, a pain that I feared would be there. And I think the wonderful writer Mark Twain, I don't think I've ever read anything of his other than just his quotes, but I love his quotes. One of his quotes is, "I've lived through thousands of traumatic experiences. It's just most of them never happened." And I think the trauma, the pain of being ourselves is a trauma that we imagine will be there. And I think very rarely are we actually inflicted with pain in just being ourselves.
Yeah.
I think it's a great liberation, actually.
Yeah. The fear of fear itself.
Right on. It's our imagination is a powerful thing, that's for sure. And it can definitely work for us. And there's another side to that polarity, too.
Right. So, who were your role models when you grew up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't have like specific role models until I was like 20 years old. When I was younger, I'd look up to whatever pro athlete was the flavor of the month, whether it was Michael Jordan or the Super Bowl winning quarterback of that year. And there's a lot of inspiration, I think. When I look back in hindsight, I can use the words of watching people express their greatness. And I think greatness is a little bit of a shallow sounding term, but really watching other people become an open vessel to express the gifts that want to flow through them. That's my adult interpretation of why my child self would really become fixated on various athletes along the way. And then when I was 20, my very first mentor and role model, I think, was a guy named Paul Chek. He runs a institute in San Diego.
Oh, I know him. I love him. He's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I got connected with him and actually ended up teaching for his institute for 7 years after I went through all the training. Yeah, Paul Chek was, I would say, my first specific role model.
Wonderful. And what did you like about him?
He was definitely radical. Like, here he was, for all intents and purposes, in a boring industry. His industry, exercise, nutrition, health, like a boring industry, very important, but at least to my 20-year-old self's eyes, boring. It's like, who cares about this? But he was such a character. And when he would talk about things that if I read about anywhere else or heard about anywhere else, it's like, I can't even get into that. I don't know, my attention doesn't grab it. But he was a messenger carrying a message. And the messenger himself, he was very entertaining to me and intriguing. He's got a lot of charisma. He's got a lot of sort of alpha maleness. He's got a very sensitive side. and he's lived life. I mean, everything from his childhood through his adult experiences. He's really been to the far corners of the earth in life experience. And I think being able to experience him as a person rather than just a teacher, but knowing his life experiences and watching him get excited and hyped up and angry and happy, that was, I think, a big part of what intrigued me about him.
Right. So what is an alpha male for you, and how do you show up as one?
Yeah, an alpha male to me, and I don't really show up as one, but what is an alpha male to me? To me, it's kind of like usually a guy, can be a woman, who expresses a lot of like assertiveness and almost like lion, king of the jungle-ness, where they're staking claim, usually loudly, like, this is how it is, or let me take charge. And I don't think that's really a good thing or a bad thing. It's just an expression some people have. And I would say I'm one of the least alpha male people that I know. It's just never really been my cup of tea of expression.
Well, I might disagree with you. I just think that there is the alpha that is older, like the caveman type alpha.
Yeah.
And there is the modern day alpha. It's a little different.
Tell me about the modern day alpha.
Well, the modern day alpha is a high achiever. Is somebody who's not afraid to put himself out there. It's somebody who leads with his heart and generosity, and somebody who treats people with respect, especially the women. And I think that you are showing those traits, and this is how you show up in the world.
That I love your definition. It honestly feels like an upgrade of my definition, which may be one of the least alpha things I can say. Like, oh no, I was wrong. You were right. Right. But no, in all honesty, it's a beautiful upgraded definition. To me, your definition represents a lot more balance within, call it the masculine psychology. I think the alpha definition that I've had in my head, for whatever reason, probably for too long, has been based mostly on the immature masculine psychology. And that's not to say, oh, Paul Chek, he's alpha, he's immature. Of course, he has that side. He's a human being.
We all do.
But yeah, for sure. But nonetheless, everything you said about that definition, not only do I like that definition, but it's like, yeah, I identify with that. So maybe I do have some or a lot of modern day alphaness.
Maybe you do.
I love already, I'm rewriting the software of who I think I am because of my experience of you, Orion. You're a powerful lady.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
It's a good question. You know, there's a lot of dangerous things I've done, some physical, some just sort of risky in a psychology or psychological sense. You know, when I was a kid, rollerblading down the steps in my parents' house, didn't turn out super well. And I didn't really understand physics enough to let that be a determine. And, then there's irresponsible, crazy, being early 20s or late teens and drinking significantly too much to the point of really being in a bad way. But, and then the crazy, what feels crazy to me, kind of more present day life. I mean, I'll do cliff jumping if that's around, and was doing cliff jumping in Kauai over New Year's. But to me, what feels really crazy in the adventuresome sense is saying yes to things when opportunities come my way, and saying yes to things when they feel right, even though they scare the hell out of me. I have no idea how I'll do them. I'll have no idea if I can do them. And on the surface, to observers, it probably doesn't look crazy. It probably looks like JP just said the word yes when he was asked a question. But that feels all kinds of like cliff jumping crazy inside of me. And it's really quite thrilling. And it's really quite, I think, fulfilling as well. It helps me keep stepping in more and more to myself, and I think my gifts as well. I do think we have to get crazy in order to find our sanity. And
wow.
So getting crazy in the sense of, say, yeah, if something feels right to me in my heart, even though it scares the hell out of me, I'm going to say yes to it. parts of me wish I didn't do that, and other parts of me are grateful as hell that I can get crazy enough. And I think the word crazy, to me, it represents I'm challenging my beliefs about who I am and what my world is.
Mm.
When I'm able to step outside of that and explore the mystery of a world and myself that doesn't fit my narrow spectrum, box of definition and interpretation, I think that kind of that to me, that's what real crazy is. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree completely. The craziest things that I did athletically was the Tough Mudder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that experience. And I think the craziest thing that I've done is going to Japan when I was 22. It was my first trip out of the country, and I had $700 in my pocket, and I didn't know anybody there. That was pretty cool.
Butterflies going. That does sound pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I went for 3.5 weeks, and I stayed for 3.5 years.
Wow.
So that was kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and everybody told me that it was a bad idea. And I did what my gut told me to do, and it was probably one of the most profound things I've ever done for myself in my life.
Yeah, and the fact that you were there for 3.5 years sounds like it would imply that. And then the fact that it's profound. Wow. So you would have missed out on the profoundness if you weren't willing to get crazy. I love that life lesson, sister. And can I ask, I think the word profound, to me, it really implies my next question is obsolete. Like, how can it possibly be spoken to with a few words? But nonetheless, I want to ask you anyway, what profoundness did you get from it?
Yeah, profound is one of those words that can have so many words stuck into it. It's one of those beautiful words. It was profound in a way of discovering my courage, self-discovery, opening my horizons to different way of living, different culture, training my brain in a different way because I studied the language. I found love. I was with a person that showed me a lot of things that I wasn't aware of and kind of showed me the world. And yeah, I felt I was a completely different person after that experience. And will always have some space in my heart. I love that place.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear. Thank you for putting into a few words a little soil sample of the profoundness.
Thank you. So that was a scary thing for me. Do you have any phobias?
I'm phobic of having phobias. So that makes me confused and conflicted. Nothing that I would call really phobias. I have a bit of a fear of heights. I think in part it's healthy because like self-preservation, you can get hurt falling. But, my fear of heights, I think, is a little bit more intense than just that. I mean, I can still get on a ladder and do something when I need to, but I definitely don't like it. But yeah, aside from that, no other phobias that I'm aware of. And in fact, I might have so many and they're just so intense that they're numbed out. So let me know if you pick up any
I don't think so.
signals of my repressed phobias.
My sense of you is that you conquered a lot of your fears, and this is just a part of your path, which is to go forward and tackle fears. You don't run away from your fears.
Yeah, I think I can surf that slope. Yeah.
I love that expression, surf that slope.
I'll let you use it, and you only have to pay me a little bit in royalties.
Thank you for that. If your house was on fire and you could only grab 3 things before leaving, what would they be?
That's actually a really interesting question because yesterday I had to evacuate my house.
You did?
I
weird.
live in Charles. Yeah.
Oh,
I live
weird.
in Charleston, South Carolina, where there's basically like a hurricane on steroids coming. So like 1 million people in the area were evacuated.
Oh, wow.
So all of yesterday, I actually did a 14-hour drive to my parents' house. They live in Ohio. And anyway, this is where I came until I fly out your way to LA next week. So I had to grab, hope, I will say this because part of me thinks I'm in charge of the universe. Hopefully the hurricane just kind of does a flyby and doesn't really hit direct on.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, my thinking before I left my house was worst case scenario. What are the essentials for me to take if everything is lost? And of course, I can't fit anything, or I can't take anything more than what will fit in my car. My dog, of course, he's number one, Zephyr, my computer, and then my video camera. So I think that's
Wow.
my dog, my computer, and my video camera. And I love my house. It's a nice house, and I certainly have other possessions, but I can deal with watching them all go.
Yeah. Are you like Buddhist where you don't have attachment to your things?
I definitely like to say I'm Buddhist, and because I'm very attached to my idea of non-attachment. I won't let that go. I think everybody should be non-attached. So that's a lot of attachment there.
Oh.
In that very non-attached kind of way. So yeah, I am maybe a little bit Buddhist. I do enjoy a lot of Buddhist philosophy, and some of it I do my best to integrate into my life. I don't pretend to be perfect with it, but yet the idea of non-attachment for me is helpful. It doesn't mean I'm not attached. It means I aim for it. So yeah, thinking about like if a lot of my possessions got wiped out, I think, I would be challenged by it, yet I think in a way peacefully challenged by it. And I think to me, non-attachment, the most important place that I like to apply that in my life is to my beliefs and my thinking. And that's a lot of my comedy videos are really, they're a therapeutic practice for me to become non-attached to my beliefs and my own dogma. So anything I do comedy videos on, it's important stuff to me. I don't at all want to come from a place of disrespect and condescension. That's why I won't do videos on things that aren't somehow related to my life. So I do videos on things that are important to me, but if I can have a playful attitude about those important things, then to me that playfulness is the energy of non-attachment. Like I can do a video doing a parody on meditation. Meditation's important to me, but if I can have that belief and just not believe that belief as much, not take it as seriously, then I think I'm becoming less attached to my own beliefs, my own thinking, and therefore hopefully less trapped in my mind, less trapped in a kind of interpreting life from a place of who I'm not, rather than maybe who I actually am. And I don't think I am my thinking. I don't think I am my beliefs.
Yeah. Who are your greatest teachers?
I would say the whole lineup of ex-girlfriends that I've been blessed to. And I think it's funny too, like, when we're talking about romantic partners, we all in the New Age community, we all learn pretty quick to consider our partner and ex-partners, they're my greatest teacher. And in a way, I think saying, they're my greatest teacher is a way of saying I still resent the hell out of them. So that might be true, the resentment for some of them. Yet I do feel there is the greatest teacher component there. My most recent partner, her and I broke up probably about 10 months ago, Deanna, and there's so much that she taught me in our relationship I've by no means comprehended at all. I'm still absorbing and processing and making sense of things. And also on that front, hopefully not in a passive aggressive way, but I would say my parents have been great teachers for me. And I do think the great teachers are typically teaching us when we don't know we're learning, and they don't know they're teaching. So I'm not here to say like, my parents were, they sat down with the scrolls and taught me, JP, here's how to have a beautiful, fulfilling life. I mean, there's some things that I took away that were like, that's a gem, Mom or Dad, thank you for that. And then there's a lot that I took away about, learning how not to live life and experiencing my life experiences with my parents. So they are great teachers for me. And also, I say this not just because he's listening, but I think my dog is a great, great teacher for me. And I think there's a reason that dog is God spelled forward. I think my little Zephyr teaches me a lot. He teaches it all in a language that's too powerful to put into English words. He does amazing things for me. He helps ground me. He helps teach me and remind me what's most real. In fact, I recently wrote about what Zephyr's been teaching me. A little contribution for a book that sounds true will be putting out called The Dharma of Dogs. I think it'll be due out maybe in the middle of 2017. Not meant to be a shameless plug for that, but just to say it was a real pleasure to give myself the gift of sitting down and writing about what has Zephyr taught me. And I actually wrote it from Zephyr's perspective. I wrote it from the perspective of what I was trying to teach JP from Zephyr's perspective.
Wow, I would love to read it now.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you don't tell anybody, I can probably send you, if you're willing to keep it classified, I can probably send you what I wrote.
What about the Dharma of cats? I have a cat.
Yeah, Dharma of cats. I don't think I'm enlightened enough to learn much from cats. They seem so stoic. It's like, how can I get any lessons from that? And you avoid me or you act pretentious. So, I love all animals, but I will say it's easier for me to connect with and learn from a dog. And right now I don't have a cat. I grew up with cats. But yeah, and I'm wondering, Orion, are you enlightened enough to learn from your cat?
Somewhat. Not yet there, but I think some of the lessons I learned from my cat were, one is if you ask for something loudly enough and enough times, you'll probably get it.
As we relate to the universe, it's a great lesson for the cat.
Two is boundaries. If you don't like something, bite. And three is sleep is good.
I like that.
But she's also very sweet. And I think cats are healers in disguise. Because like if I'll feel low or bad, she will lay on me and purr. And I think it was scientifically proven that the purring of cat puts your mind on a different vibration. It's very soothing.
Oh, I heard something along those lines. And my experience has me where I definitely believe that it is very beautiful to listen to a cat purr. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing those lessons. And it also makes me think the lesson that cats teach and dogs teach, kind of like the doctrine of licking thyself, is probably to be taken symbolically rather than literally, or not. But I am just maybe.
Yeah, that's so cute. I want to go back to your ex-girlfriend and go more into relationships.
Yeah, what the hell was wrong with her, Orion? Let's talk about that.
No, not about that.
Okay.
I want to talk about sexual energy.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had a video about that. So what is sexual energy for you? And how do you transcend sexual energy to real life?
Wow. Man, I love that big, bold, beautiful question. And, my delusional thought, what sexual energy is, to me, sexual, and this might sound abstract, probably because it is. I'll see if I can get more grounded with it. To me, sexual energy it's a river of life that flows through us. We can try to restrict it, repress it, suppress it, and I think that costs us. So this river of life, sexual energy, I think when we can, and also not control it. I think when we can honor it and not control it in the sense of repressing it, but also not control it in the sense of let me use this to gratify myself, increase my whatever, my status and control other people. I think that is very disrespectful of this, I think, very sacred energy, the river of life is sexual energy that flows through us. So to me, there's that, and that certainly goes into a very literal physiological level where our hormonal system and our physiology, our tissues, our nervous system is very, very much a part of this. And I do think those physical systems are a slave to the more subtle levels of our being. So nonetheless, there's a lot going on with sexual energy. In any way, I think sexual energy is allowing that river of life to flow through our psychology, our physiology, and find expression. And sometimes that, of course, takes on the dance of being sexual with another person, and sometimes not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think creativity can have a lot of influence from our sexual energy when we can cap it, or not cap it, but uncap it. And I think that's so much easier said than done. And I will say this, I think sexual energy, maybe this is getting into the transcending part, or part of me wants to use the word integrating rather than transcending.
Mm.
But I think sexual energy leads us into a mystery.
Mm.
And I think where real life is always the mystery. I think when we take a look at the known, the familiar, that's kind of like the life that we've already lived. That's why it's familiar to us. That's why we know about it. We've lived that. We just remember it. But I think sexual energy takes us into a mystery. It can be a mystery of intimacy. I think it can be a mystery of creative expression, a mystery of union with someone else, where here's these two apparent parts that create a third thing called the whole, which is the sum of the parts that can't happen unless there's a merging together. And I think just like anything else in nature, it's the sexual energy that creates the opening for a merging to come together, so something greater than ourselves can be created.
How do you ignite your own sexual energy? What do you do? What's your practices? Because I know there are a lot of practices for women, but what are the men practices to increasing the sexual energy?
Yeah, well, here's my answer. And I don't know if it's a functional answer or a dysfunctional answer. First off, I would say, to be honest, I don't want to mislead people. I think I have a lot of work to do at better accepting my sexual energy and essentially being in a more functional relationship with it, where I can honor it and not get constricted or squeamish around what's old shame that I project onto sexual energy.
Wow.
So here's my answer. I don't do anything active as a way of igniting my sexual energy. There's a footnote on that I'll get to in a second. I do, when I feel my sexual energy, whether it's arousal or something even deeper than that I don't really have a word for, I do my best to honor it. It can be as simple as allowing myself to flirt with a woman. For so long, I would carry so much shame about, like, it's disrespectful to flirt with a woman. It was just a rationalization that my shame would essentially express in order to justify shutting down my sexual energy. But I'm learning to outgrow that, where, if I'm in a setting and there's a lovely lady and there appears to be some kind of chemistry, maybe we're not going to be life partners, or maybe it's going to be nothing other than this conversation, but being able to engage more dimensions of myself through this thing that we so trivially call flirting. I think there's a connection that happens at a psychological, emotional, mental, spiritual levels when we allow ourselves to flirt with someone. So to me, that's really important to say yes to. So when I feel that, I do my best to notice it and let it express rather than clamping it down, because I've spent too many years clamping it down. And then I will also say this. Here's the footnote. When I mentioned, well, I don't do anything active. I just am passively trying to say yes when I feel the natural lava wanting to come up. Maybe I do something active. The past, I don't know, maybe 2 years, but especially the past year or so, creativity I'm devoting more and more surface area in the landscape of my life, my schedule for creativity. And in my opinion, creativity, it doesn't come from the human mind. It comes from connecting to something greater than ourselves and allowing that to come through us. And while that isn't physically arousing to me, I do think there's a very kind of sexual energy, connection, and flow that comes with creativity. So nonetheless, that is maybe some kind of active practice I have. But yeah, and I appreciate your awesome question on this.
Thank you. I think sexual discovery is a part of self-discovery.
Yeah.
It's one of the same. It's a topic that people are shy from, both men and women. And I liked what you said about flirting. Flirting is such a great thing. It's a lovely exchange of energy, of I acknowledge you, I see you. Do you want to play with me? It might be a yes or a no, but it brings out such a lovely, sweet, warm and bubbly sexual energy, and not even sexual energy, just energy in general and connection, like you said. It's really nice. Have you ever done the practice Tantra?
I have not. I'm curious about it, but no, never got into it.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I have a little bit, and I definitely want to learn more. It's very pleasurable. So there are a few sexual blueprints. I studied with Jaiya, who is a sexologist, and she talks about 5 sexual blueprints. One is the sexual, the sensual, the energetic, the kinky, and the shapeshifter. And I have a whole episode about it. It's episode number 3, I think, with Jaiya. And studying with her, I also learned a little bit about Tantra and the energetic part of my sexual blueprints. And it's fascinating. It's just great. Brings out deeper connection.
Yeah, well, I'd love to check out that episode you did with Jaiya. And I'm also inspired, like watching how you light up, talking about some of the Tantra you've been into and how it's pleasurable for you.
That was a part of me putting myself in the box, which was hiding that part of me as well.
Yeah.
Pretty much hiding everything that I was because I was afraid to be judged. And so I dimmed my own light because I thought that will help other people shine or help other people see me. Just an absolute bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it does sound like bullshit. And I think it's bullshit that I know I can relate to. And I think tons of other people can relate to, their version of it. How do we dim ourselves with the fantasy-based illusion that we can actually help other people shine more by dimming a part of ourselves, rejecting a part of ourselves that we believe somehow is going to be a burden on other people. And in this case, an element of it is our sexual energy. Yeah, it's interesting. Bottom line is we are sexual beings, like it or not, as is anything else that's alive. And learning more and more how to say yes to it, I think, is so important. And I think talking about my shame, I'll call it rationalizations to deny my sexual energy that part of me has used for so long is I would take a look at people who, in my opinion, were acting out creepy sexual energy, predatorial sexual tendencies, and be like, I don't want to be that.
Right.
Therefore, no sexual energy for me, or at least like no more other than like the basic expressions that are kind of one-dimensional and get pretty boring. And of course, like I think it's great. Like I am grateful, I'm repulsed when I see people act out either active or passive aggressive sexual tendencies, using sexual energy in a way that is not integrous, in my opinion. So grateful I can be repulsed by that, but learning how to separate, like there's that, and then there is beautiful, respectful, honoring, intimate sexual expression that's beyond my wildest imagination. That is there too. It's not just these two things are merged together. No, they're separate.
Right. I love it. I love that you make that separation, and it's such a good distinction. It's like looking at a wealthy person who is treating other people with disrespect and saying all wealthy people are really bad, therefore money is bad, therefore I want to shy away from my success.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Absolutely.
Right. What is the difference between being alive and truly living?
Yeah, in my opinion, truly living is boldly stepping into ourself and not apologizing for it, versus being technically alive, surviving. I think that's when we are living someone else's life instead of our own, where we may be very unconsciously in a posture of being a slave to expectations that we experienced other people to have of us, parents, whoever, society, whoever it is. But truly being alive is, I think, us being willing to explore the mystery of who we are and saying yes to expressing it and not apologizing for it.
Love it.
So to me, that's truly life. And I think real life happens when we're exploring mystery, not being in our comfort zone of the familiar.
Mm-hmm. So you study with great leaders and luminaries, and I recently saw a video about Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
and that was hilarious. I love Tony. I followed Tony for years, and I did all his programs. What did you gain out of that experience with Tony?
A significant amount. I was blown away by my experience there. Aside from you'll see, if you haven't seen the video, I've got a video called the Tony Robbins Experience, and some of the B-roll footage of that video was me in character at the event with the crowd. So aside from that, maybe hour or so when I was dressed up and acting kind of goofy, and actually his team was filming me. We collaborated on the project. Aside from those times, I was fully immersed in the experience. I was there going full in to participate. And that was about 3 months ago at this point. And I've experienced what I would, and I don't use this term lightly, a significant shift inside of me, a level of passion and energy that's with me on a daily basis. And I'm still using some of the practices that he taught in order to essentially keep those passion and inspiration receptors active. I think there truly are receptors, and very actively changing my state rather than kind of sitting back passively for most of the day saying, man, I hope I'm in a good mood and energized today.
Right.
But becoming much more of an active participant of feeling good and being in a peak state and having the energy and passion to better give my mission or to better serve my mission. So, and specifically, there were two things that during one point, during one of the introspective exercises, kind of like, okay, what are two things that you need to do, but you're not doing them? You're blocked on them, and being blocked on them is really impairing your life or holding you back from something. And there were two things. I wrote them down, and they were one of the things I had been delaying for a few years, which was hiring an assistant. I mean, at this time, middle of the summer, I was not sleeping much, not even having much time for creativity, because I was just trying to handle everything in my business myself.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just completely killing me. But the upside to my dysfunctional ego is I'm in control of everything. Even if this kills me, at least I'm in control. But a wiser part of me knew I need to surrender control. I need to hire someone. And the other thing is there had been over the past, I don't know, year and a half or so, there's been various TV production companies that have approached me wanting to do a show together based on my ultra spiritual character. And some of them were just not a good fit. But there had been a company that we started talks maybe late spring, and they felt like a good fit. But I wasn't getting crazy and saying yes to it. It's like, oh, that cliff jump, ooh, that's big enough. So in my heart, I knew that felt like a good fit. And in my heart, I knew I needed to hire someone. So I wrote those down during the exercise. And I think with the other self-supportive strategies that he taught, I went home, and I think within a week I had the TV agreement signed and had someone hired. And since then I've brought on other managers and agents into my business as well. So, I mean, that's a very tangible shift, and that's made a huge, huge, huge difference. So not only I call it my business, but my business, my brand, what I do, it's now able to keep growing at a faster and faster rate. But my personal satisfaction, how liberated I feel inside of my own skin, and how much passion I feel about my life and my mission on a daily basis, which are sort of like super intangible, yet I can feel them. That's just been dramatically improved since Tony's event. So anyway, you got me excited.
No, yeah, I know. I'm excited too because Tony had an incredible impact on my life. Helped me at a time where I was very depressed, actually, and looking for answers. And that helped created a shift. And in his other event, Date with Destiny, I actually met my fiance.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, so it was a big, big breakthrough, a big shift.
You definitely found it with your destiny at his event. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
is amazing.
It's actually a great place for single people to find really quality people. Just saying.
I bet that's true. Actually, I definitely imagine that's true. I was so surprised in the best possible way when in person, not only meeting Tony, but also just experiencing his event, how deep of a person he is.
You met him in person?
Yeah, I was very privileged to be able
How
to
cool.
meet him in person. And yeah, I think there's magic inside of all of us. I would never discount anybody, including myself or you. Yet I would just say Tony is very magical as well. And he's
Yeah.
very good at expressing his magic. It truly is a gift to people who are willing to be touched by it.
Amen. Beautiful. So I had the pleasure of connecting with your assistant, Karen,
Yeah.
and she's a lovely person. I can sense it through the emails. How did you find her? How did you find a good person? I find this to be a challenge to find somebody that resonates with you and is really committed to working with you and committed to your mission.
Yeah, so Karen has been a great friend and feels like a family member for about 10 years. I met her when I was living in San Diego. And it was actually within a week, maybe even sooner than that, after I finished with Tony's Unleash the Power Within event. And I decided, yep, it's very clear to me. Not only do I have to, but I need to, want to, and I'm being guided to hire an assistant. And Karen's become much more than an assistant. So I was just on the phone with her, letting her know, we're catching up. Here's what's on my mind. And man, it's killing me trying to do everything on my own. And so we had a whole conversation. I told her, so I'm definitely going to be hiring someone. I don't know who, I don't even know how to hire someone. And that's not going to stop me. So I've got to figure out how and who. And probably 5 minutes after we hung up the phone, she called me back and said, JP, I want you to consider me for the job.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, oh, wow, that is amazing. So, she's retired career military, so she doesn't need the job. And she's got the lifestyle where if it's a job she wants, she's got the time to do it. Being former career military, she's incredibly structured and able to just get stuff done and take care of tons of stuff. And most of all, I trust her. I really trust her. I mean, she knows me. She knows all the dimensions of my work, maybe better than anybody else on planet Earth. So if I were giving a soundbite of advice on hiring someone, to me, it would be trust is most important. Now, I realize we're not all going to have Aaron in our life, a close friend we've known for the past 10 years. Yet, nonetheless, when interviewing someone and you hear all the facts and figures, logical information, notice the feeling of trust that you have or don't have. And before I hired Karen, I was talking to lots of friends of mine who have the life experience, the wisdom of doing what I want to do, which is hiring the right people. And the consistent pattern they were all telling me as I was asking them for their advice and wisdom is go for trust. You are way better off paying a lot more for someone who you trust compared to someone who you don't trust. And especially for me, I'm not running a shoe store or just some online business selling whatever it is. What I do in my business is share my heart with people, and I don't take that lightly. So it's not just someone to do some kind of mindless tasks. It's truly helping represent my heart. And that trust has been incredibly important for that.
I love it. I want to be respectful of your time. I can speak with you forever and ever and ever and ever. You're fascinating and you're kind and you're sweet and you're smart. I just really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
But before we go, 2 questions. One is, what are your 3 tips to living a stellar life? And 2, where can people find you?
Cool. Well, finding me is obviously tip number 1 for a stellar life. It's actually not. 3 steps for living a stellar life. Number 1 that comes to my mind is seek to be who you are. Not who you want to be, not who you think you are, but seek for the sacred space in between of who you are. Tip number 2 for a stellar life is be creative. I think expressing creativity is essential to us. It's just like if you took a breath in and never exhaled it, it would kill you. And I think never exhaling the creative inspiration that comes through us, maybe our crown chakra is 6, I don't know, or our heart, we've got to exhale our creativity. There's a reason why we're on this planet. And I think one of the reasons is for our own adventure. And another reason is we realize I'm on this planet with 7 billion other people. I'm supposed to contribute too. Not only supposed to, but I have this opportunity to contribute. And creativity is part of how we do that. And I'm not just talking about creativity in the sense of painting, music, though those are wonderful forms. They're not my forms. Video and writing and speaking and performing are few of my creative expressions. And so for a person who says, I'm not creative, I just want you to know, I don't buy it. I don't buy that limiting story. I can understand the part of you that thinks that you're not creative. I thought that too for the first 33 years of my life. So if you pretend for a second you are absolutely a creative being, then the question isn't, am I creative or not? It's, how can I express my creativity? Not even what is going to be my main modus operandi of creative expression for the rest of my life, but what is a way I can start experimenting with it? So the first step to creativity is getting creative on how to express your creativity. And then the third invitation I'd invite people to consider for living a stellar life is practice vulnerability like it's going out of style. I mean, I think creativity is part of the passionate expression of life, and being vulnerable is the compassionate expression. Vulnerability is getting more and more connected to ourself, not our thinking, but to ourself through this language called feeling. Carl Jung said our feelings are the language of our soul. So the more we can connect to our feelings, our heart, our emotions, our sensations through this thing called vulnerability, the more I think we are stepping deeper into this miracle called our life. And I think that also then has the beautiful secondary effect of making us more able to connect to other people, which is that's a miracle itself as well. So those are a few thoughts of mine that are important to me. Doesn't mean they're important to other people, but I love them.
And where can people find you?
That second question I had already forgotten. Yeah, you can find all my social media handles are Awaken with JP. So Facebook and YouTube are probably the top couple to hit me at, but I'm on all of them. Awaken with JP.
Yeah. JP, I love and appreciate you. And I thank you very much for your time and the beautiful words you shared with us today.
Oh, you're welcome, Orion. Thank you for having me on, and I judge you to be absolutely beautiful and delightful. So good to talk with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon, Orion.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.